items that we went into closed session for, Virginia Code 2.2-3711A, discussion of a prospective business or industry where no previous announcement has been made. And Virginia Code 2.2-3711A8, consultation with legal counsel regarding special legal matters requiring advice by such counsel. And there was a third one. What was it?
That was added to that,
Consultation, there's two items under the
so
Okay,
there's
two
two items
under-
there as opposed to the
Okay,
other.
two under that.
So moved. Second.
And may I have a roll call for that, please?
I'm sorry, the second came so fast. Mr. Penn, okay, Mr. Penn,
Yes.
Mr. Dawson,
Aye.
Mr. East,
Aye.
Mr. Radcliffe,
Aye.
Mr. Clunt,
Abstain.
Mr. Reed.
Aye.
Okay. I'd like to welcome, do I need to do the modification before this? Before I welcome, or can I welcome first?
We can go ahead and welcome and then do
Okay.
modification.
I'd like to welcome everyone that's here in person and online to our meeting tonight. And if there's any modifications to public session, there will be one ordinance 2021-31, ordinance amending section 34 through 64 of chapter 34, community development of the town of Pulaski, Virginia Code of Ordinances. Where would you like to put that? Where should we put it, Darlene?
We're gonna have motions first.
I would put it right after your public hearing,
Okay.
as you're going into,
All right, so-
or at the end of the resolution, that'd be fine.
Okay, and then we have another resolution 2021-59. We'll keep that one, but we're gonna add that to it also. If I can get a motion to put those in.
What is the, what's
2155.
the resolution on 5-9?
It's a resolution recognizing the dedication and public service career of Darlene Burcham. Don't you give me that look.
I was gonna say, I
This
don't
is-
have a copy.
I have it.
All right.
Here, secure. 2021-59.
2021-59.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to add a line item on the agenda for ordinance 2021-31.
Check. And,
Were you gonna,
and
can we do both of them?
yes.
And motion also, including that motion, adding ordinance 2021-59. Second.
And a second,
Yeah, this one.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
And may I have a roll call for that,
Yes,
please?
sir. Mr. Penn,
Yes.
Mr. Dawson.
Aye.
Mr. East.
Aye.
Mr. Radcliffe.
Aye.
Mr. Clunt.
Aye.
Mr. Reed.
Aye.
All right, now if you'll look at your December 7th, 2021 council meeting minutes, and if someone will make a motion to accept those.
I move we set December 7th, 2021 council meeting minutes as written.
Second.
And may I have a roll call for that one?
Mr. Penn,
Yes.
Mr. Dawson.
Aye.
Mr. East.
Aye.
Mr. Radcliffe.
Aye.
Mr. Clunt.
Aye.
Mr. Reed.
Aye.
First, our first presentation is FY 21 audit, Emily Byers, Robinson Farmer Cox Associates.
And Mr. Mayor, you have at your places, a copy of the audit. So Emily won't have to pass those out. We got this big box of them the other day.
You should have a copy of the report in front of you. I think that all of you have had the pleasure, perhaps the pain, of sitting through one of my presentations before. So I'm going to switch it up just a little bit. I'm not going to go into too much detail of the report. Not a whole lot really changed other than the numbers, obviously, for activity during the year. But I don't feel like I need to walk you through and tell you where everything is this year. So as was mentioned, my name is Emily. I'm the partner in charge on your engagement. I handed out a smaller presentation file for you all. So we're gonna jump right into that this year. Every year we go over the different independent auditors reports that are included in your financial statement report. So on page 2 of that file, I've just summarized those different reports. The independent auditors report on pages 2 to 4 of your financial statements is essentially where we state whether we think your financial statements are materially correct in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. You guys have a clean, unmodified opinion. That's what you want. That just means that we think the numbers are materially correct. The next independent auditor's report is on pages 90 and 91. This is what I usually refer to as your yellow book opinion. We take a look at internal control related matters as well as compliance related matters that the APA tells us to look at. You guys have no internal control, significant deficiencies, or material weaknesses, and no non-compliance noted. So you again have another clean, unmodified report there, which is what you want. On pages 92 to 93 of the big financial statements is a new auditor's report for you all this year. This is in accordance with uniform guidance. You received over $750,000 in federal funds during the year, predominantly because of the CARES or CRF money that came from the county. So you were required to undergo a single audit. That's where we take a look at the major federal program, which was the CARES single audit program, as well as the overriding uniform guidance requirements that oversee all federal programs. So we had no non-compliance noted, no internal control deficiencies noted, and an unmodified opinion. So you had 3 different auditors' reports, 3 clean opinions, clean audit. On page 3, this is where we take a look at basically your income statement on the modified basis of accounting. These numbers are pulled from Exhibit 5 of the report, but it really just schedules your revenues and expenses over the last 5 years so that you can see how revenues and expenditures have grown or declined, how they've changed over that 5-year period. The amounts off to the right, the compounded annual growth rates, are meant to smooth the effects of any outlying transactions, so it just shows how those particular revenues and expenditures grew every year over the last 5 years from 2017 to 2021. A couple of things that I thought I would mention. Intergovernmental revenue went up. Again, that's the CARES CRF single audit. I expect that number is gonna go up pretty significantly over the next few years, depending on how quickly or how slowly you spend down your ARPA funds, how you guys plan to use that. That is actually gonna be in a different grant, so you might not see that in what we're looking at, but your overall intergovernmental is gonna grow. If you do look at the report, that is one change this year. One thing that I think management did a great job of was pulling the grants out of the general fund so that those funds don't have a chance to get commingled for reporting purposes, so that you guys can clearly see your grant revenues and your grant related expenditures. The CARES CRF money is in the general fund. That was not pulled out during the year. Overall, if you go probably 3/4 of the way down where you see other financing sources and uses, that's just over $1 million during the year. That's predominantly due to the closing of the UDAG due from. Last December 2020, you all voted to close that out because there was no set repayment plan for that. And overall, you can see that there was a positive change in fund balance of $1.5 million. That's driven again by the UDAG closing that, but also just a general increase in revenues and a cutting of expenditures. So I think that you guys did a great job, even if you take out the UDAG impact of closing that due from, which is kind of a windfall. That's not gonna happen again next year. You guys had a positive change in fund balance of $500,000. So I think that's great. I think you guys did a great job. And you can see on the next page, of course I noticed a typo right as I was getting ready for this presentation. So I'll send you guys a new copy of this in PDF. But you know that we like to look at your reserve balances every year to see what kind of reserves you have in place. GFOA recommends that you have 2 months of reserves, which is about 16-17%. The ending fund balance as a percentage of operating expense that you see here is 11%. It's really 22%. I wanted to play to see what happened if you took out the impact of UDAG, what you all did during the year to grow revenues and cut expenditures, what impact that had on your reserve balances. And then I forgot, and we printed the report with my playing with that number. So I'll send you a new PDF, but without UDAG, you had reserves of 11%. With UDAG and closing that due from, you've got 22%. So your reserve balances look great. So I think over the next few years, you guys will just be tasked with maintaining those reserve balances and making sure that you keep them up where they are now.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
Just so that it's clear in my head. So
Yep.
the UDAG essentially we had we had debts that we just basically knew we weren't gonna pay. And
Yeah.
so we just cleared them off the books in a one-time kind of transaction, and what we're seeing, that big $1 million swing,
Mhm.
is essentially just the closing of basically an uncollectible debt,
Sort of, you had, a due to and due from between the general fund and the UDAG fund.
Okay.
And there was no repayment plan, there was no real structured, process wherein you were gonna pay those monies back and forth. And so they had sat there, I think we went all the way back. We went back to 2013, and I wanna say that those balances have been there since
At least now.
2013, 2015, somewhere around that time frame. And so if you're not gonna pay those back, we're inflating fund balance,
Gotcha.
and it's not truly representative. So if it's not gonna be paid back, we need to really wipe those balances out and reflect that.
Okay, so it was an
internal.
internal transaction, so
Yeah,
it's not like
yeah.
we're wiping away money that
No.
somebody else should pay us.
No,
It's just
exactly.
money that we sort of loaned ourselves,
Yes,
and then decided that we're just not gonna pretend like we're loaning ourselves that money.
yes.
Okay.
And you can only
Thank
see one side of it, cause we really just focus on the general fund.
So, and
That
that,
actually was a recommendation that Emily
Yes.
made to you all in the
yeah,
last
I remember that, I just
time.
wanted to make it clear in my head what exactly the recommendation was.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
If you look at pages 5 and 6, these are really just pie charts to show you where you generate your revenues and where you expend your money every year. Typically, these charts look pretty consistent when you look 5 years back into the current year. They're a little bit skewed this year because of the pandemic and the revenues that you got and where those expenditures are reported. So they're not quite as useful as they normally are. One thing that I just wanted to mention, as we're talking about maintaining your reserve balances, on the revenue side, you can kind of take out intergovernmental, which you don't really have a huge amount of control over that, so that you can see that general property taxes and other local taxes make up over half of the rest of your revenues. So if you're trying to grow revenues, those are your two largest sources. And then you can look on the expenditure side and see where you expend your money. Predominantly public safety this year. Again, that's the pandemic response. A lot of those expenses are reported under public safety during the year. On page 7 is a summary of long-term obligations. This includes actual debt issuances, like bill bonds, notes payable, capital leases. It also includes estimates for your pension and OPEB liabilities and compensated absences. Not a whole lot of activity this year. Really on the true debt side of things, you just paid down in accordance with your amortization schedules and your loan agreements. You didn't have any issuances or anything like that. Your pension and OPEB liabilities changed based on predominantly what VRS reported your liabilities should be. Towards the bottom, I've shown you your debt per capita balances and then also the state averages for the last 4 years. I know some people like to see that. I usually don't like to go into a whole lot of detail, but I did include that in case you guys want to see it. On page 8 is a required communication with governance letter. These are just things that we're required to make sure we've communicated to you as part of our audit. You did implement a new standard during the year, GASB 84, which related to fiduciary activities. It didn't really change a whole lot in your report. It related to the PSA fund that's shown on exhibits 10 and now exhibit 11 in your report. You used to have a balance sheet, now you have a balance sheet and an income statement. It really doesn't affect the actual operations of the town. We disclose here your significant estimates. These are the same as they've been in the past, and the real change, the depreciable lives of assets, allowance for doubtful accounts, and then the amounts related to pension and OPEB. If we had any difficulties in dealing with management, that would have been disclosed to you all here. I think you guys have a really great staff. I think everybody does a great job of getting us what we need when we're here and prioritizing us so that we can be efficient, so they can get back to their routine jobs. I was a little bit nervous with recent turnover in the finance director position. I know Ms. Bertram's been here for a year and a half, 2 years now? I can't remember.
Well over a year.
But, so I was a little bit nervous with the turnover last spring, but I think things went great. I think Jackie's doing a great job. I think you've got a great staff. So, and that's not something that I say everywhere. So, I think that's great. I look forward to working with you all and your staff again next year, hopefully. So nothing, you have a pretty boring letter right there. Page 11 are the audit recommendations. I usually don't go into too much detail. These are things where we felt like we could communicate, but they're not significant enough to be included in a report. really where we might be able to provide some efficiencies or best practices, things that might be able to, for management to consider and to implement, into processes next year. And then the last thing that's included in your handout on page 13 all the way to the end, are upcoming GASB standards that will be implemented over the next several years. GASB has been very busy again. The lease standard will be implemented in fiscal year 22, but the rest of them don't get implemented for the next year, a couple years down the road. So if anybody has trouble sleeping tonight, I recommend that you go to that page of this presentation, and I imagine that will help you. Overall, I think, like I said, we issued 3 different opinions, 3 different reports, all of which are clean. Fund balances, reserve balances look great. So I think overall it was a good audit, a good, as far as efficiency and process itself, I think it went well. So that's really all I had to go over with you all. If you've got questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
I have one question.
Yeah.
We're talking about adding a meals tax incentive policy, for example. And I've noticed that, you know, generally on these sort of financial positions, we don't show like any of those as like a line item. Is that typical? Is that something that is, you know, cause I think if I'm a business and I'm giving people discounts,
Mm-hmm.
right, I record that in my financial track. Is that just something governments just don't do, or how does that get captured?
Is that like some sort of discount that you're offering?
Well, in the sense that, like, you know, if somebody opens a new business and
Uh-huh.
they get an incentive because we rebate their tax incentives, and so,
Yep.
you know, we're collecting X dollars, but we're actually keeping X minus, you know,
Whatever you get.
98% of X or something
Mhm.
like that. You know, overall, is there a place that's supposed to show up on the? I mean,
So, in the financial statements themselves on Schedule 1, where your
Mhm.
revenues are reported, that would be reported net, because you don't show that you brought it in and then paid it back out as an incentive, it's just shown net.
okay.
But then there is a note disclosure, so if you have material incentives, it would be disclosed in a separate note disclosure.
Okay.
To say that you've entered into, you know, XYZ incentive with this company, and you paid out this much
Okay.
related to same during the year.
But your general operating budget has that line item detail,
Okay.
so that the meals tax is tracked.
Okay. And would that be the same for like?
A year-to-year basis, and then we
Sure.
have monthly
Would that be the same
reports.
if we had like a real estate rebate or land use kind of, I'm thinking of land use as,
Yep.
you know, kind of the typical example of that.
Yep, those tax abatement programs where the company will pay all of their real estate, and then if they employ so many people during the year,
Right.
they get back 90% of their taxes. It's all netted within the tax
Okay.
revenue.
There's not like a separate line item that says incentives, discounts, whatever you wanna call it. Okay.
No, it would just be in the disclosures.
Okay. Alright.
I can double check that for you though.
Oh,
just
no,
to
no,
make
it
sure.
just is
I'm not
something I've been
extra.
curious about for you know, just
Yeah.
trying to understand where the money's coming from and how much are we give, you know, I feel like citizens should know how much we're, you know, what we're foregoing
Right.
in the hope of generating additional revenue.
Right.
And then I have one other question.
Uh-huh.
Our general fund expenditures and revenues, the various mix, is that within the sort of norm, I mean, I know, you know, there's a range for everything, but is the, you know, say 55-60% from property and local taxes, and that's split, is that pretty typical that you see?
I don't know specifically about the percentages necessarily, but I would say that the pie chart, especially for revenue, looks very similar to other places.
Okay.
I can't swear that the percentages are the same, but it's always intergovernmental, general property taxes, and other local taxes that are the top 3. And depending on where you are, it might shift slightly between those categories, but they're almost always the top 3.
Okay. And is the same thing for the expenditures?
I think so. I'd have to go back and compare a few. We do a lot of counties, and so there's always an education piece in there,
Sure,
which
yes.
kind of skews things for you all. But I think that generally those would be the top 3. Sometimes people have a little bit more community development, but it just depends on what big projects they have
Sure,
going
okay.
on. But I think that public safety, public works, and general government are generally the larger ones. But I can try to look at that and see if that's comparable.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Thank you.
Mhm.
If I could just add, in the back of the big books,
Mm-hmm.
under other statistical information, I would encourage the council to look at those various, pages, because it kind of compares and you see what we've collected and what we've spent over a period of 10 years.
Mhm.
in the various categories. So that's a way to look at,
That's starting on page 81.
yes,
Okay.
I find those to be very significant when you're trying to explain to somebody where is their money going, or
Yeah.
what kind of trends we have had.
Okay. Thank you.
Maybe not as detailed as you might be asking, but I think that's a good starting point.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else have any questions?
I just wanna thank Emily for her patience. I asked her an awful lot of questions, this year as this audit was being prepared, and she was very patient with both Jackie and I. And I think we both learned a lot, and we'll be even better prepared with all of these changes that are coming, and with the additional, reporting that's being required under the ARPA funding. So thank you, Emily, personally, for what you've done to help us get to this point.
You're welcome. I appreciate that. Can I get that in writing so I can share that with my husband? Exercise patience. Any other questions?
I think that's it. Thank you.
You guys have my contact too, so if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you guys. Have a good holiday.
You too.
I didn't have any questions, but I think, it's worth us, thanking you guys, publicly for what you've done, Jackie and Darlene both. Nothing but compliments, from the auditor about what y'all done, and I know, we know as a group, how much you guys have gone through and had to work through to get to a point that an auditor would say that is a mountain of an accomplishment. And so just, I thank you for the work you guys are doing.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to recreation options. Brady Deal.
I'm gonna give you these, but you have to not look ahead. You need to stay with the schedule, okay?
You just
We'll
telling
tell you
us
who
not to
does
look
it
ahead,
at
so
the
make
end.
us wanna look ahead though.
Just take your stack and pass them on.
That's more than one thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're like, how many is it, Brady?
There's 3 different options.
3 pages.
Yeah.
They're all
So
together
there's
though,
a-
so just take a stack. Oh, you didn't have them separated at
I
times?
did.
Yeah. They're taking them apart now.
What?
We gotta go through this drill again, guys.
Alright, so everybody should have one packet that features some skateboard ramps, skate park, one packet that has a weird designed trail outline,
That's that. You got those
that's
too.
a mountain bike park, and one that looks like Draper Mountain.
Yes. So now stack them all back together, so you're only looking at the
Alright.
skate park.
So everybody should have one of
Okay?
these, have one of these, have one of these, and then
We don't know, we're not supposed to look.
have one of these.
Yeah, we can't look at that.
You
so
just
we
looked
don't-
ahead. Sorry, Miss Darlene. Alright. We're gonna be on the skate park first, but before we talk about it, so in our comprehensive plan survey, we had received about 560 responses to one or more of the engagement tools, which we were pretty excited about, the number of responses. And one of the sort of broad themes was for people to list their favorite places in town. 7 of the 8 places were outdoor amenities. So that definitely spoke volumes to us that we know that there's a lot of outdoor beauty in our town, and there's a lot of possibilities to create better recreation opportunities for our citizens. And so we felt like we, based on your direction, and then what we've been working on staff-wise, has been oriented towards a place that will align with our residents' goals already, which is to have these places, and knowing that they already are feeling like their favorite places in town are ones that have outdoor amenities. And so that's what we wanted to discuss tonight, was several projects that we're currently working on that will improve and expand the outdoor recreation opportunities that we offer to our residents, and not just to our residents, but also to people outside our community that we feel these amenities would bring in tourism-wise into our community.
And I would just point out that we have in the ARPA funding that was just mentioned by the auditor. A unique opportunity to really focus on these recreational amenities, because it is very explicit in the ARPA regulations that the funding can be used for outdoor activities and facilities. So what we're talking about in large part in terms of any cost to make improvements will be funded through the ARPA funding, assuming that you all support the activities that we're looking at. And then what will be left for you all to consider in the future, and certainly is going to be needed, is any staff resources to manage the various activities. But we previously talked about wanting to replace all of our playgrounds with state-of-the-art equipment and that meet safety standards, and those certainly are part of this effort. And then we've got some special initiatives that Brady's going to go through with you.
So to start off, as you all are well aware, we've been working on several years a new skate park for our residents. Last week we had the community feedback session. We have received a final design proposal from the consultant that we had selected. The funds used for that process were actually used through the American Rescue Plan Act. That is before you, that final design. It's the U-shaped pad on First Street. This park really offers 3 different skating experiences within that one park. So there's a beginner level on the bottom left-hand side of the design. As you move towards the top of the park, it increases in its expertise needed to ride. So we feel like we're offering a park that can suit a wide variety of riders. Included with that picture is a description of the ramps that would be included. There's over 30 features that will be on the park, and the quote is also listed on that page, and that quote includes shipping and installation. So these will be made to order. All these ramps will be made to order for this park. They're specifically designed and will be made custom to our park, and we're hoping that we can have this construction completed in the spring, and are right now just waiting on final documents from the firm so that we can move forward and get the process underway. That area will still need to invest in. This quote does not include the funds that we'll need to use for fencing and lighting and possibly some pedestrian seating. And then of course the park will also have the basketball courts, so we'll need to have basketball goals installed there. So that quote doesn't provide the total quote for the whole park, but that is for the installation, shipping, production of the ramps and equipment that will be used for the skate park. Before I move on to item number 2 on the list, are there any questions regarding the skate park?
How long, where would we go with the fencing, and how long would that take us to do the fence and the lights and stuff?
So we have tasked members of our engineering department to go ahead and begin getting some pricing and quoting on fencing and lighting. I don't have an idea right now of the time. I do know that several products, as we all know, are several weeks out shipping wise, and I'm assuming fencing and lighting would probably be one of those. Conduit has been tough to get, but I still think we can achieve our spring 2022 deadline with all those products included. Ms. Darling, correct me if I'm wrong. Yep.
Are you going with the full-size fence or what?
So we would like it to be, personally, I think it would be smart to have a little bit of a taller fence. We do want to have the park locked in the evenings.
Right.
And the cool thing about this park is its proximity to the police department. So it's on the same street as the town municipal building, and walking distance from the police department, that we feel will help it be more safe, secure, and prevent any type of damage or vandalism. And one of the aspects to that will be keeping it lit and then also locking it at a certain point in the evening so that people can't access the skate area or the basketball area. But the intent is to have fences, I guess, to answer your question, that someone can't just easily hop
Right.
over, you know what I mean? Yes, sir.
So we don't know an overall quote of the entire park area of what we would do start to finish yet.
Not at this time, no, sir.
No, but I think we were, based upon the conversations that we've had with the council, we wanted to get the skate park done first, and unsaid, but hopefully understood, is that when this park is open, we will remove any access to the park that's in the old McGill area, so that this will be, the location where we expect, skaters to be located, and we'll dismantle what is there. We left that open at the request of the council until we can make this available, but the other pieces should be, in some respects, easier to finish than the skate park, and we did want a professional to actually design the elements, rather than us taking it on as a staff project. But again, our intent is to use ARPA funds to complete that whole, what I call sports complex of that area, and then at that point, we would be, installing the naming recognition that the council mentioned a few meetings ago, but wanna get the elements in place first.
Have any of our skaters seen the design?
Yes, yes, sir. And that was the purpose of the community feedback session. We didn't get quite the participation we wanted, but they have seen the design and been made aware. And I even saw that the owner of the skateboard shop was actually quoted in the Southwest Times article this past Sunday when they published the picture of the skate park design. So, and
Good feedback.
good feedback.
I think Mr. Akers was there.
Mr. Akers, yep.
And just to let you know, he was just Break's site. He was just Break, like when we grew up, he said we rode on the street, so this is really this is on sidewalks. This is really gonna work. So just to let you know, he was very excited about it.
So the second item is an item that we, while working with this firm, discovered that they also had a sort of sister company that did mountain bike parks. And we decided that there is a parcel of property that would really lend itself to this park, and wanted just to move forward with getting some initial conceptual designs created. The property that I'm mentioning is the 8-acre parcel off of Route 99, where we formerly had some community gardens located. That property is immediately adjacent to the New River Trail, so it's already being used by some people who, of course, are biking or walking, and it's right off of I-81. And our goal here is a little bit more for the tourism aspect, as the skate park is more serving a lot of our direct residents. We feel like this will serve a little bit more of a tourism aspect. And to explain that further, Roanoke, and particularly Virginia's Blue Ridge, is the only silver level recognized area by the International Mountain Biking Association on the East Coast. So on the East Coast, the Virginia's Blue Ridge is a destination for mountain biking, particularly the Roanoke area, the Roanoke Valley. And so what we would like to do is tap into that a little bit and offer something that brings people that are coming from across the nation to utilize the mountain bike parks and trails that are available in this region to come to the town of Pulaski. And this park, we think, has the potential of doing that. The designers were very excited when we told them the size of the property, and then ended up showing them the layout and going through the topography. What I have before you is a very conceptual 2D layout that sort of breaks the project down into 3 phases. And as you flip through the pages, you'll see sort of each phase, and then the numbers that are listed on the paper correspond with certain features that would be built or constructed at that point on the trail in the park. And so where we're at right now is we're doing some engineering review to determine the stormwater management that practices that we may need to implement. We're also working with them, and they're going to move forward and getting some 3D renderings and an actual cost estimate to build this park. And we're going to ask that they would give us that estimate in phases, just so we could potentially do it in a phased approach. So this is a project that's a lot further behind than the skate park, but it's one that we went ahead and pressed forward and got some design services for, just to see if it was something that the council would be interested in moving forward with and getting constructed and offering as an outdoor aspect in the town of Pulaski. Darlene, do you have anything to add
Yeah, and I
there?
would just add, and I think the council knows, that that particular piece of land has limited use because of its proximity to the creek and other aspects of it. So again, trying to look at what is the highest and best use of the land that we have available, knowing that outdoor activities are fairly an important aspect of our region, it seemed that this might be an appropriate use. But before we would actually go beyond getting these 3D concepts and the cost, we would come back to the council and share that with you and make sure you're comfortable. But there is a beginners, intermediate, and advanced level to that, as well as some of the work that has been done on the skate park. to
Yes,
try to-
Phyllis, this would probably be one of the biggest assets that we will do. I'm telling you. You know, I've been, Greg and Mike's been on here recently talking about, if you ever go to Myrtle Beach, which you do, or these places has got these things, they're packed. It's, the bike trails is something, and it's with the ramps and all, I think that would be one of the greatest things we will get accomplished.
And the proximity, we think, to the interstate just makes it that much of a
Absolutely.
draw.
As well as the extension, the New River Trail extension,
Yeah.
so.
And during this process, and that would sort of lead to the next item, but we had sent out a survey regarding the mountain bike park to targeted agencies. Something that the consultant wanted us to do is not just put out a whole public survey, because it doesn't really give you targeted feedback as it relates to the park at this stage. They really wanted some targeted feedback from riders and people that would use the park. And we sent out to just certain groups in the region this survey. We got about 55 responses from all levels of riders, and a lot of good information. And that actually resulted in us meeting an individual that is on the board of Blue Ridge Off-Road Cyclists, which is the charter organization that is affiliated, the regional affiliate of the International Mountain Biking Association. And they were very excited about what we were potentially doing and seeing how they could partner with us to include that in their the things that they market to their members and other people that come and ride. And that sort of leads us to that next item, which is Draper Mountain, which you all had sort of tasked us with doing a little bit of further investigation into and its viability as a potential park. And we have had that organization send some of their people down that are professional mountain bike riders to ride those trails and give us an assessment. To be brief, they really enjoyed what it had to offer. They had no idea it was here, were super excited about it, but did say that there were some features that probably needed to be deconstructed, and then some certain other issues, safety-wise and drainage-wise, that would need to be handled to make it a viable designated park. So we did sort of get that free professional opinion just from a group of people that wanted to come ride their mountain bikes on a Saturday, which was pretty exciting. And we're planning on working a little bit further with them and seeing if there's any way that we could potentially partner to get something a little more formal. But to do that, of course, we would have to have a couple things. One, we would need to designate the area as a park, which I know that there's discussions going on there. And two, we'd have to have some funding to put towards. There is, of course, the route through the American Rescue Plan Act, but also we've spoken with the Virginia Outdoor Foundation, and the representative from there had mentioned that if we were to transfer or I'll give them an easement through the preservation or conservation side, that they would then, of course, allocate a certain amount of resources that we could then invest back into that area. A couple things that I would mention is, because people use that area to mountain bike and hike, it would probably be something to consider whether we should separate mountain biking trails and hiking trails, and have those marked. We also need to make sure that the access that is the county's property on the Draper Mountain side, that there's appropriate identification and features there, possibly like a bike tool stand or something that may be needed. Same thing with the Valley Road side, where a lot of your people would finish their rides at, that there's proper signage and stuff on that side, and that we coordinate with fire and EMS to make sure that they're aware of what is actually on Draper Mountain. And so I think that was our biggest concern, is we really didn't know what was up there because of the private group that had sort of taken the initiative of doing a lot of the work up there. But we do have a lot better idea of what's up there, and a better idea moving forward of what may need to happen if the council would like to designate that as a park.
I got it.
But this is one of those places that I tried to signal early on, that if we go forward with designating it as a park and making these improvements that Brady has just outlined, we are going to have staff resources dedicated to if nothing else, monitoring it, even if you have volunteer groups, but volunteer groups have to be managed, and somebody has to be overseeing that. I know that at least one council member has talked recently with a member of the Board of Supervisors of the county, and that individual has offered to help, or bring county resources to help us at least initially, but I do think there needs to be an official designation. We need to have boundaries established. We need to do some more legwork around that. I believe you all have gotten, from, the town attorney, you know, some advice as to the process that we need to go through for any naming. And we do need to put together a budget, to make sure that we handle either with the Outdoor Foundation money or, our other resources, whether they be ARPA or general fund, to really, I guess, get back into the business of recreation, which this community did have for a number of years, and then that particular, department, I guess, was, dissolved. But having these resources, I think, means that we'll have a lot more visitation into the town, going back to, my statement about letting people or helping people find us for the first time. I think this can be a real boon to us from an economic development standpoint, but I do think we have to put the right resources together to do it right the first time. I don't think we wanna go into any of these, without, dotting all the i's and crossing all the t's. But it does look like, with some proper management, we could, really make use of that mountain as a resource, that would bring more people into the community, along with the mountain biking and skate park. And I guess, are we gonna talk about those?
Yes, we have a couple more items.
Okay, yeah,
so-
still a couple more.
Sorry.
I'll make it brief. I'm just, so I like both the ideas with the bike parks and trails. My question is, so in the property adjacent to 99, it's, you know, this is pretty cut and dry. You can get, it's easy to wrap a number around it. And I'm familiar with these trails somewhat on the mountain. What would be our approach to actually figuring out, because they're pretty complex, as far as figuring out our, you know, the dollar value associated with, as you say, managing it. And I'm just trying to get my head around it. I think it's a great idea. The trails are
I mean,
awesome.
I think you could just go out there, I mean, with a cell phone, you could just, you know, or anything that's got GPS, you could just walk the trails
Right.
and it'll map it for you. I mean, I think there's software to do
Right,
that.
no, I'm not necessarily considering the mapping portion of it, but the upkeep portion of it. This seems, you know, the property adjacent to 99 seems a little more, you know, you can kind of get your head around it, or at least I can, but the mountain part, while
It's
I
more
agree with it.
manageable, cause it's in a confined area, it's
Right.
visible, and you're absolutely right, and that was my very first concern when you all had the presentation a couple of meetings ago by the group that called themselves, I think, the Draper Mountain,
Friends Draper Mountain.
Friends of Draper Mountain. I wanted to first know the condition of the trails, and we did have, and I had heard, anecdotally, that we had some, items, wooden items that had been done that needed to be repaired or replaced. But I'm not a mountain biker, so I felt like we needed to find out what we were getting ourselves into. This group that voluntarily, because they like to ride, has given us an indication that there are items that need to be replaced. Well, if there are items that need to be replaced, then obviously somebody needs to be monitoring regularly the condition of those trails, so that if there are things that need to be repaired, replaced, enhanced, we take responsibility for that. Getting into it initially is gonna be an educated guess about what it's gonna cost us. Brady's idea that he's come up with in talking with the Outdoors Foundation would give us a little bit of seed money. But when you talk about monitoring a skate park, the mountain bike, trail, just to make sure that everything's right, that the lights come on when they're supposed to, you know, the fence isn't, damaged in any way, you know, we need somebody that's gonna be looking at it in the same way that candidly, our playgrounds have not been monitored, you know, except when somebody complains. And we need to, if we're gonna do recreation, we need to do it correctly.
Right, I agree 100%. So I mean, I fully support both of these ideas. I certainly like it. So I guess what I'm driving at is, what is our next step to try and quantify? And I realize we don't have the answers, you guys don't have them yet. Is try to quantify what needs to happen. So we had these professional riders came out and said, well, you need to fix a few things. Do we start to attach a price tag to that and try and figure out?
I think we have to get
It's
some
obviously-
expertise
Right.
that comes in and helps us deal with a couple of things that Brady has mentioned. First of all, the fact, because that was one of the questions I asked of him, is there gonna be a conflict between those who hike and those who bike? And there are some aspects of those trails that may need to be modified in order to keep, to some extent, those two interest groups separate so that we don't have a safety issue. We need an expert to look at that, not
I mean,
Brady
I know
or
at-
somebody that we
at
have on
Clear Lake
staff.
State Park, the trails there are multi-use. I mean, you can go hiking along them and you will run into people.
But
mountain
aren't
biking.
there some areas within Draper
Not
Mountain?
Clear Lake State Park. I mean, there may be places, I mean, I know that the New River Land Trust just opened a facility on Brush Mountain outside of Blacksburg, and they have, I think they have multi-use trails. And there are probably people, you know, I think Whitfield has a park like it, you know, Blacksburg has some similar, and we could probably reach out to them and I would guess they'd have some sense of what do they budget for that? You know, what do they
But
designate?
as I understood it, in terms of the two groups, there are some areas in Draper Mountain where it might not be safe.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
there are probably
so-
some trails that we should probably designate as
Right.
bike only.
And that's all I'm
Yeah.
saying, is that we need to have somebody who has that expertise come in and evaluate that. We can look at and get a approximate cost, you know, once somebody identifies those features that need to be repaired or replaced. And then we need a body, a person that's going to regularly, monitor that. We are gonna need to have signage. I know that the Draper Mountain group was, eager to market the area, and I think at the appropriate time, we should market. But my position is, you do it right the first time, even if it means you take a little bit longer to get it ready.
Oh, sure, I agree. I was just curious. I was just trying to understand, because it is it would be a big undertaking, but it's also it'd be a very positive thing, obviously, for the community, so.
I think Mr. Reed spoke well, sorry, that reaching out to, since we do live in such proximity to a lot of these trails and parks, these other localities have departments that are operating these. So I think we could,
That's a good idea.
you know, discuss the size of our trails and talk with them a little bit on how they maintenance and get a little bit of a figure, but ultimately we probably would need a professional consultant, as Ms. Darlene mentioned, to come in and.
You have your initial cost, which would be more than
Yes,
your
sir.
maintenance cost.
Just to make sure I understand, you know, you turn my consultants, but I think, Darlene, you're kind of talking along the lines of us needing a recreational park staff position. Yeah, you're talking about staffing somebody for, you know,
Yeah, I think you're gonna need what I'll call, for want of a better term, a park manager. Even if you have volunteers that are taking care of a trail, even if you have brand new equipment, ramps at a skate park, you know, mountain bikes, the new playground, somebody needs to be responsible for managing that, making regular visits to all of these different activities to make sure that they're kept in good shape. Now, we may have the ability within Public Works, if a swing needs to be repaired, to then repair it, but we need to have eyes out looking at these things, at all times, so that they stay in good repair, as opposed to getting into disrepair. So I think at a minimum, you're gonna need at least one staff person, and you may need a maintenance person with it, I don't know. And some of reason why we're having this conversation tonight is that we've got lots of opportunities, both with the ARPA money and with our looking at recreation as an important, economic development tool, for the town. But at some point, we can't do it all. We can't be all things to all people, and we need your help in identifying and prioritizing what you want us to work on first, second, and third. And we do have a couple more ideas, that we've kind of internally, going up the flagpole that we wanna share with you all for your consideration as well. There doesn't need to be necessarily a decision tonight on which goes first or second, but we need you all to start thinking about that, because as we move forward, while we have the opportunity of money, that money is only good for a limited period of time and basically for facilities, not for the manpower kinds of aspects that will be necessary.
It is nice to be in the position to have these decisions to make, right? So, that's a good thing.
So go ahead. You have
I'm
a
sorry, I
question?
only had one other question before we get, further away from it. On the 99 location, and I know it's a small thought, but I think currently, when that location was used, it was really just kind of an extended shoulder that people drove over onto, and I think if you were trying to increase activity at that location, you'd have to consider some type of, guardrailing off of, a parking
Area.
stretch.
Yep.
Or something from a safety standpoint, if you're trying to actually draw people to that location, I think that would have to be part
Yeah,
of.
even if you're trying to get people to park at the exploit
No, it's
location of the
a
trail
small-
and ride over there, you
It's a
still
small
wanna
thing,
have
but I think that has
signage
to be
and
part of
stuff.
consideration of what the cost of actually creating parking there would be.
I told Barry he had to have a place for people to sit too, because not everybody's gonna be out there, but some, particularly like for the beginners trail, they're gonna be parents that are gonna wanna be observing what's going on, and yet the plan really just doesn't have things like that. So, I mean, we've got a long ways to go, but it seemed to me as I was talking with Brady that we needed to bring some of these things to your attention, even as we're moving them, sometimes at a snail's pace, and then sometimes more rapidly than we wanted to, for you to see what we're trying to do to generate additional activity in and for the town, as well as for future potentially residents.
And it's not depicted on the site, but according to our zoning ordinance, we would have to have about 20 parking spaces on site
On the
right
site.
there, on site. You need about one per 10,000 square foot for a park. 10,000 square foot of land, one space per 10,000 square foot of land. So we need about 20 spaces, right there to adequately, satisfy our zoning ordinance.
Hey Brady,
Yes,
out of
sir.
curiosity, I'll go back to this right quick. When you say beginners, are we talking about, it's like this trail right here, would it be for like smaller kids?
So yes, sir, like it would be no big jumps, it would just sort of be some hills and bumps that you could have a beginner lap through, and then on the broader trails, there's still even some other trails that are beginner, but then there's intermediate and advanced trails that would have more jumps and drops and rock gardens and stuff like that, that would be a little bit more difficult to navigate.
We could get we got an old coachman that they used to use, got that one wheel on front fixed up, get our town manager running trails through the day.
We
Think you
need
could
that
do
for
that.
sure, at least for the next
Yeah.
year.
So the last two ideas, sorry guys, but to move forward and not take up too much more of your time on this, the last two ideas that we're sort of, or one's an idea, one's more of a reality. One is we're pricing, as Darlene mentioned, new playground equipment for all of our playgrounds, which is very exciting. And those playgrounds, the 6th Street playground, the playground near the train station, the Valley Road playground, and then Heritage Park.
And we're also replacing the playground equipment at
Gatewood Park.
Okay, great.
And then, with that being said, we had heard a lot of feedback from our residents, particularly during the comprehensive plan process, that we don't have a lot to do in the summer for kids, particularly water related. And so, a couple things you could do there. One is you could have a municipal pool, and pools are a lot to operate and invest in. So we have been looking at splash pads and splash parks, and there's one in Narrows that we actually visited and met with the Parks and Recreation Director at that facility, and she gave us a complete overview of their whole process of getting that park constructed, what the day-to-day takes, how much staffing is needed, what the costs are. We got tons of information. She was a great resource. If we hire somebody, we should go after her to hire her to the town of Pulaski. That's what I left. That was the impression I left with. But it was really a cool park, and she said that their citizens really appreciated it. This place for kids to go in the summertime. And so we're looking into this. It's really at the baby form, seed form of idea stage. But as we've considered locations and trying to consider where the parks are in terms of the breakdown of our town, we also had to consider for this being near bathrooms, as little kids are going to have restroom access, and being water related need restroom access. we felt like the Cool Springs area might be a nice place, where the large field is that's no longer used, that formerly was used, no longer used formally, was used in the past as a recreation site through the Parks and Rec department that the town operated. But there's bathroom facilities there on site already constructed, which would be a significant cost in the construction of this park. So adding to that side, park-wise, may be a smart investment. That was just an idea that we've talked about. And I will, just so Darlene knows that I have it on here, the last line in bold says we will need additional staff support to maintain these efforts, okay? Because I know she's mentioned it several times. I want to make sure I mention it. We wasn't in trouble. So
I'll hear that, yeah.
I've had a lot of fun working through it, but as you guys know, I don't have the time in the day to really dedicate what's necessary to even this process. You know, even this part takes a lot of our time to do it. And so we really do need someone that is a parks manager that's going through and being able to facilitate these projects and work with these people and then maintain and oversee through the future. And that would help me out a lot, and I would be able to focus, of course, on some other things. But we've been working hard to do this because our citizens have voiced that they want these amenities. They want these features. And in such a beautiful place like our town, I just think that it would be so smart to invest in these resources, particularly with the funds that we have available through the American Rescue Plan Act.
And just,
Clearly, this is economic development, and I know a lot of
Yep.
people don't define
Oh, I
economic
wanted to
development
say-
as housing and recreation and other kinds of amenities, but it is economic development.
I have traveled with small children for several years now, and I will tell you that I have found places that have splash pads in the middle of, like, Pennsylvania, in a place I never would have gone to otherwise. And I stopped my car and I went there and hung out, and probably would have, I think I went to a restaurant, bought gas, all that kind of stuff, for no other reason than they had a splash pad. You can find it online. So it really is economic development.
And employment-wise, you know, you have a parks manager in the summer. If you have a splash pad, you're going to need 4 to 6 attendants that can work shift work.
This park I went to in Pennsylvania didn't have, it was automatic. It would go on for a while and then go off. And it was open, it was in a park.
I was about to say, I've seen splash pads and
Yeah, I
I've
mean, 'cause
never
they could
seen
be-
somebody attending it.
They could be fully automated so that, I mean, you know, you need somebody to check it and stuff like that, but, you know, you can consider it, you know, essentially like a playground. Use at your own risk kind of stuff.
I do wanna say, I appreciate what you and your staff are doing, Brady, cause you guys have really been on top of this stuff, coming up with these new ideas, and, you know, we just talked about the mountain trails, 2 meetings ago? And you're already back with other information, so that's.
So you want us to slow down, is that what you're
No,
saying?
not at all. No, it's been a joy riding along with you guys. But,
This
Thank
is
you.
what we've been trying to move to for several years. It's not first time, and Brady, or you and Brady, y'all have just jumped all over something that we've talked about ever since we've been up here.
Well, we have the luxury, and I have to call it that, of the ARPA money for the next 2 years, and we have in the ARPA regulations the opportunity to make recreation facilities available. And all of us, I think, understand with what we've been through and what we'll probably keep going through with this pandemic, that being outdoors is one of the most positive things that you can do. So it's to everyone's benefit if we can successfully navigate through several of these opportunities. And they all won't come to fruition, you know, all at the same time. We can't afford to do that. But we can get some facilities in place. And I'd like for you all to be thinking about, maybe for our next conversation, the ones that you'd like us to spend the greatest time on right now. We clearly are in a position that we're moving forward on the skate park. We've got the design, we're ready to order as soon as we have the final prices. And we'll get the materials that are needed for the lighting and the fencing. And we'll come back to you, I think, with what the work that's been done thus far on the mountain bike trail, for you all to see what those costs are gonna be. But then some of these other ones that we're talking about, we have the ARPA money for both this year and next year, so we can, you know, be looking at what do we wanna put in that next year's allocation in terms of facilities. But I do think as we move forward, that finding the opportunity to hire someone to really manage this, and we may even be able to, on a temporary basis, I'll have to go back and reread the guidelines, hire someone and pay their salary at least for a year or two out of the ARPA money, but it will become a cost ongoing to us, and that's true of a lot of.
I'm just curious, and maybe you don't know the answer, how soon would you be, well, I take that back, you know the answer. How soon would you be interested in hiring someone for?
Yesterday.
I kinda thought that was a silly question, I kinda thought that was it, so.
Or we'll just, Brady and I'll keep managing this as we manage other balls that we have up in the air, but I just thought, given the interest that you all had expressed about the Draper Mountain, request, it was time, maybe even past time, to share with you some of these other things that we've been working on and getting details for, although I think several of them, not the splash pad or Draper Mountain, but several of them were on our initial list that we gave you all as to how we plan to spend, the ARPA money.
Well, and actually having all those recreation facilities coming online, and, I could see the need for that person. It sounds like that's something we wanna do up front before all they're actually completed, just to manage the project, and I believe that's what, I understand, thank you.
And our people deserve the best. We're a small locality, Southwest Virginia, but we deserve the best parks that we can offer. And I think that's been our internal goal. Darlene, I, and all the other staff is to work on projects that when they're completed, it's not just, we expected this, it's when someone visits Southwest Virginia, they're like, man, can you believe this level of park is in this small locality? So, we're really reaching for the stars, and we're just not afraid to do that. Our people deserve it, our residents deserve it.
And I have to say, that you mentioned Brady and I, but, every department really has touched these projects that we've talked to you about and been involved. So that Public Works is looking at it. Clearly, Jackie on the finance side, because we're keeping track of the ARPA expenses all the time. I've got the fire chief, out looking at playground equipment. I mean, this is really a total staff effort, because we believe that this is an opportunity. I keep talking about the window of opportunity, that this is the time for us to get some things done that maybe we wanted to do a long time ago and didn't, or maybe didn't even think about. But in today's world, this is what we need to be doing.
Yeah, I certainly agree, you have an awesome staff, we talk to you guys every couple weeks, so we don't wanna forget them, cause I know there's a lot going on that we don't see, so.
So when you see on your weekly report, the fire chief saying investigating playgrounds, you know that he's not goofing off. He's really doing something as it relates to these projects.
He's actually informally the Parks and Rec director as well.
Other questions for Brady? Because we've probably taken longer than we had anticipated. We've got people waiting for a public hearing.
Good job.
All right.
Thank you.
You stand up there for the next thing too.
Yes, I can sit for
So, our next is the public hearing for ordinance 2021-30, case 2021-11 SE, request for special exception by Beamer World Properties LLC for the light industrial use industry type 1 for property located at 1000 Memorial Drive. And can I have the staff report, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of council, we have received requests from Beamer World Properties LLC for a special exception for the property located at 1000 Memorial Drive, tax parcels 072-140-48 and 072-140-48A for the light industrial use industry type 1. In your packet on the last page was a definition of industry type 1 that gives a detailed breakdown of what would be included in that usage. Beamer World is currently located in Dublin, Virginia, and they are looking to expand their operations, which is why they are considering this location. They would intend on purchasing the location, however, that is contingent upon the outcome of this request. Beamer World sells parts and competes in racing events across the globe. Currently, they have around 50 employees. Their intention would be to use the property for their office space. They do a lot of online orders and communication. Their warehouse space, some part assembling and machining, and then a shop area in which they will work on and modify their race cars. As I mentioned in the Planning Commission meeting, the largest use impact at this facility would be a dyno machine. This machine will be located indoors on the property, and the Beamer World representatives also plan to enclose it in another space to add additional sound mitigation. When I conducted my staff review, the three things I look for when we're bringing this use as a special exception, which is really a little bit more of an intense use, that's why it's through special exception than what is permitted on the property, is to look for sight, sound, and smell. Of course, there was no smell at the property. Sight-wise, I was very impressed. There was no parts laying around outside or abandoned vehicles outside. It was just cars that were parked there for people that are employed there. And then sound, I was also pleasantly surprised that the dyno was nowhere near as loud externally as you may think it would be. Included in the packet, as I mentioned, is that definition. I'm not going to read through that whole definition of industry type 1, but that is what they're asking for, is this industry type 1 usage. It's really, to paraphrase or briefly describe, is a light industrial usage that allows them to do this assembling and machining and compounding and fabricating and light repair work and on their property. Whereas an industry type 2 would be like a Volvo, someone with a heavy duty assembly line. This is more of an industry type 1, a light manufacturing, which the B1 does provide for these light industrial uses through special exception. The majority of the operations will be hosted in the Magic Mart facility. That's about a 72,000 square foot building. Their current location is about 30,000 square feet in total between the two buildings. So it'll be doubling the size available to them for their operation. And at this time, if you have any questions for me, please do ask.
So the
Planning Commission recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, I even had that written down right here. I knew she'd come after me if I didn't say the things I had written down. The Planning Commission's resolution, they recommended approval 6-0 on a unanimous vote.
I guess the question, just to make it clear, but the special use exception is not just for it's for the whole.
So it's for the whole
Parcel.
parcel. So the one Magic Mart facility is on the one parcel,
Right.
and then everything else is on the other parcel.
Okay.
So just to have it, if they wanted to use any of those spaces for storage or anything related to accessory to this, you have to include both parcels in the request.
Okay.
Yep.
If there's no other questions, then I'd like to open the public hearing for ordinance 2021-30. Does anyone want to speak?
The representatives from Beamer Road are here. I don't want to put them on the spot, but if you guys would like to speak.
At the podium or what's
You can
what's
sit
referenced here?
down. It's okay if you want to stand and
Well,
go ahead.
If you stand at the podium, people at home can hear you.
Well, we want to entertain other people too. No, I appreciate the opportunity here, both to speak and then the greater opportunity to be a part of this town. Our business has grown tremendously since we started in Pulaski County over 20 years ago. We're now located in the industrial park beside Volvo, half a mile from where I went to high school. So I enjoy the area. I appreciate the ability that we have now with the business that we have to kind of breathe some new life back into to the location that we hope to move to. We lead our world in BMW performance, automotive, etc. We run a clean ship. We like to have everything just perfect that goes to our facility and people we bring into it and so forth as well. So I think we're going to be a fantastic partner. I think we have a lot to offer the town and by the same token, love being able to participate in the rest of the meeting. I think you guys are doing a great job with the town offering things to people. What you got?
I love the dyno machines anyway. So I'm a big Harley rider, so I love the drag racing. And do you actually build the engines, machine the engines, or is that what you guys do it better? And I'm a deputy, so I've been more better for you. I've been in your graduate place there plenty of times snooping around, but you actually build those, do they send you the engines and you build them, or you build those engines so like a NASCAR, if you will, from scratch?
So our dyno is a chassis dyno. So we're dyno in the full car and driveline assembly. We assemble some motors, and I say some motors. That's probably 5 a year. If we have the need to assemble one, we certainly will. In our modern world of racing, we call BMW. They send us something from Germany, and we stick it in a car and go. For us, the dyno facility is not about constantly testing and making power, etc. It's about verification of our equipment before we load it on the trailer and send it across the country.
And your dad is an attorney.
That is correct.
I look a lot like my king.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I guess my other question is, the question I think most people in town are gonna wanna know is, are there gonna be vehicles out in the parking lot besides, obviously all the personal vehicles? Like, so that's, I imagine, gonna be the question, so might as well ask you for it.
It's my absolute hope that they're never out in the parking lot.
Okay.
We don't like to advertise what we do. We enjoy what we do. A lot of other people too, but we understand it's a distraction to our business, but it is business. It's our goal to keep everything inside, and just for the value of the cars and the things that we have invested in. That stuff can't sit outside.
Fair enough. And then, so you're hoping to use some more of the space on the non-Magic Mark part of the space?
Well, we had the opportunity to buy the whole space, not just the one parcel. To us, it makes sense. Again, I'm pretty excited with what we're doing with bringing a bunch of people in to work in the one side, and it's kind of a cool concept. The more we dig into it, to be able to kind of create our neighborhood. So I like that, but I'm aware that we have a growing business. We moved from, we expanded next door by buying our neighborhood property from about, I think we were maybe 15,000 square feet, and we added another 17,000. We outgrew that in 2 years. I don't know what the threshold of our business is, but I hope that we have this one final move to make, and then we have enough property and enough building space that we can continue to expand without it being limited by the size of our container.
Great, thank you. Those are my questions.
Anyone else? Thank you.
All right.
And is there anyone else that wants to speak during the public hearing? Okay. If not, I shall close the public hearing. Now, does council have any other questions before we move on?
Mr. Mayor, I make the motion, we accept ordinance 2021-30, a request for a special exemption from Beamer World Properties LLC for limited industrial use of type 1 property located at 1,000 Memorial Drive, Pulaski.
Second.
And may I have a roll call for that, please, ma'am?
Mr. Penn?
Yes.
Mr. Dawson?
Aye.
Mr. East?
Aye.
Mr. Radcliffe?
Yes.
Mr. Pons?
Abstain.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. That passes.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll move on to resolution 2021-56, appropriation, staff, I guess, to be.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we have identified that there are some funds that the DHCD folks, Department of Health and Community Development, made available to the town to complete its downtown grant, and this particular resolution appropriates those funds. We are very close to closing out that grant. In fact, the extension that we're under ends the end of this month, and then we'll have a closeout procedure in early February, and we will be spending the bulk of these monies, but this is the maximum amount that's still available for us, and we do have some reimbursements that we have been holding until this resolution is approved. No local money involved in it.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt resolution 2021-56 as written.
Second.
And may I have a roll call for that, please?
Mr. Penn?
Yes.
Mr. Dawson?
Aye.
Mr. East?
Aye.
Mr. Radcliffe?
Aye.
Mr. Pons?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Resolution 2021-57, amendment to the Personnel Policy Manual. Ms. Bertram.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We have, two suggested changes for, the personnel manual. The first has to do with holiday pay. And this is something that I became aware of only, recently, but the way, holidays have been earned is that regardless of the shift that someone is employed under, they only accrue 8 hours. So for them to take off, they may work 10 hours or 12 hours, but only get 8 hours of holiday leave. So this particular language clarifies and says that, they will receive a number of hours equal to the hours that they work on their scheduled shift. And in addition to that, for public safety positions, we are recommending that those holidays be preloaded on the 1st of January each year so that they have more time to use them, but use them within the calendar year. The way it currently reads, it's a year from each holiday. So if Martin Luther King is January the 17th, we have to manage and keep records to see that that particular leave day is taken off before next January 17th. And so for record-keeping purposes, this is the easier way to do it, plus it gives the employees the correct number of hours for the holiday. And we've already anticipated that if somebody left, having to preload it, that would be removed from their final pay. So we're not going to lose the benefit, but it'll make it much easier for the employees, particularly in public safety, to be scheduled to take those times and days off than the way they have to schedule them now. The second one, has to do with the service awards. And rather than the code or the personnel manual specifying what the award would be, because we used to have increments that said for 5 years you get a certificate and 10 years you get something else. We have eliminated, those award items to just say when the awards would be, every 5 years in increments of 5, so 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 35, 40, and tried to simplify, that process, because candidly, the monetary amount, that was there for those awards, I hate to say it, is pitiful compared to the number of years that someone has worked, and that's because those have never changed since the ordinance or the personnel manual was put in place, I guess, back in 2014. So rather than have those, we would decide each year what those awards would actually be, as opposed to being dictated within the personnel policy. Be happy to try to answer any questions. Probably made it more complicated than it needs to be.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2021-57, resolution concerning amendments to the town personnel policy.
Second.
And may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Penn?
Yes.
Mr. Dawson?
Aye.
Mr. East?
Aye.
Mr. Radcliffe?
Aye.
Mr. Pons?
Aye.
Mr. Reese?
Aye.
Resolution 2021-58, Mills Tax Incentive Policy. Ms. Bertram.
As the council knows, we have had a number of discussions around the idea of instituting a meals tax incentive in order to hopefully attract additional eateries to our downtown. This particular resolution specifies that the meals tax incentive would be applicable only in the commercial historic district of the downtown, which basically are the several streets that are bordered between First Street and Third. And the policy, as you have attached, would make a percentage of the meals tax rebated for 5 years. And it does have the requirement that it would be paid by the individual business and then rebated on a quarterly basis.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve resolution 2021-58, resolution concerning the meals tax incentive policy for the commercial historic district of the town of Pulaski as written.
Second.
You may have a roll call, please, ma'am.
Mr. Penn?
Yes.
Mr. Dawson?
Aye.
Mr. East?
Aye.
Mr. Radcliffe?
Aye.
Mr. Clance?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Ordinance 2021-31, ordinance amending section 34 through 64 of chapter 34, community development of the town of Pulaski, Virginia Code of Ordinance.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is, the replacement to, the enterprise zone incentive section that I had you all delete at your previous meeting because it was outdated. This particular amendment, will provide for 4 different, incentives in the enterprise zone, which is a larger area of the town than just the commercial historic district, and includes real estate tax, abatement, for properties that are over 30 years of age, waiver of building permit fees up to a maximum depending on the investment, the business occupational license fee for the first and second years, and any upgrades of utility services, would be rebated, for an investment of over $500,000 or more.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance 2021-31, ordinance amending section 34 through 64 of chapter 34, community development of the town of Pulaski, Virginia Code of Ordinance as written.
Second.
And may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Penn?
Yes.
Mr. Dawson?
Aye.
Mr. East?
Aye.
Mr. Radcliffe?
Aye.
Mr. Clance?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
And now we move on to the important one. Resolution 2021-59, a resolution recognizing the dedicated public service career of Darlene Burcham. And I'll read the resolution. Whereas the town council of the town of Pulaski, Virginia desires to extend its recognition to Darlene Burcham for her service to the Commonwealth of Virginia, and whereas Darlene has achieved the spectacular feat of receiving a 50-year service award from the International City County Management Association, and whereas Darlene has distinguished herself amongst her peers and colleagues for her passionate commitment to serving the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia with the utmost integrity, perseverance, and leadership, and whereas Darlene has been invaluable to the success of multiple communities across the Commonwealth of Virginia and presently serves the people of the town of Pulaski with a wholehearted dedication that is valued greatly by the town council and town staff. And whereas the town council expresses sincere gratitude to Darlene for her decades of service and for all that she has contributed to the citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia through her remarkable career in local government management. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town council hereby recognizes Darlene Burcham for answering the noble call of this profession and for the extraordinary accomplishments of receiving a 50-year service award from the International City Council Management Association. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be framed and presented to Darlene Burcham as a token of our respect on this 21st day of December 2021, after the town council makes their motion. If someone would like to make the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve resolution 2021-59.
Second.
Second. And may I have a roll call for that, please?
Mr. Penn?
Yes.
I told you.
Think about it a while, too. Mr. Dawson?
Aye.
Mr. East?
Aye.
Mr. Radcliffe?
Aye. serve.
So you started when you were 3, right?
Youthful
I
spirit.
started young, that's for sure, but not quite 3. Thank you very much to all of you, I
He
appreciate it.
wants to take a picture.
Oh, a picture?
since nobody else is doing it.
Well, you can sell them then, see, to those who didn't show up.
Let's see if I can get the whole count there. Okay, 1, 2, and 3.
You didn't have to say smile because they couldn't see if we
Thank you.
were smiling. Oh, well,
We
thank
had
you.
to sneak around and do this. But
Yes, you really
it was
did.
it was worth it. And very well deserved. Oh, all right.
Some people might say I'm crazy.
Okay, with that, we'll move to the council comments. Mr. Penn?
Don't have anything, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dawson?
I just have one quick comment, actually, just in regards to the meals tax incentive, you know, with that, being on the books now, what are our plans to, is there a way to really kind of make sure that's out there, an appropriate way for people to know, beyond just being on our website or
Well, as we certainly are visited or hear of prospects, or as we recruit, you know, if we're trying to get a particular eatery, and if you go into the detail, you'll see that the meals tax rebate is only eligible to new businesses that come in as of the 1st of July of this year. That it is to be kind of a new activity as opposed to a second restaurant of the same sort that's already in the town, that kind of thing. So as people come to us as prospects, or as owners of property have prospects and come to us, we'll certainly make that known. We also obviously will make it known to those who we are aware of in the area, and it is the commercial historic district. So it's a limited area for the incentive. We will make those eateries that have opened since July aware of it, and I'm sure that word of mouth will spread very rapidly to let others know of it. I'm not sure that we're ready to put it on a Facebook or anything like that. I think we'll appropriately market it through our economic development efforts.
thank you, that's all I have.
But you all are free to encourage anybody who wants to bring a restaurant to town to get in touch with.
Or an ice cream shop, right?
Well, I've insisted that we have to have an ice cream shop. I actually have one developer who says he'll make my wish come true. I think an ice cream shop would bring the world to the downtown.
Mr. East?
I just have a somewhat of a PSA. I'm on the kind of sit in with the meetings for the New River Conservancy. I don't know if you guys remember, not too long ago, they went through the 6-point plan for improvements with Peak Creek. Covers a whole variety of issues. I think the one we focused on at the time was the flooding issues and that sort of thing. Part of that, one of those bullets during that previous presentation was to do an evaluation of the water, and so Virginia Tech Biological Systems Engineering has performed an analysis or evaluation of the water, and they're going to be presenting their results January 6th at the train station at 7 o'clock. And so if anybody wants to attend to get more information, the New River Conservancy is going to be there, Friends of Peak Creek, representatives from Friends of Clater Lake, as well as members of the New River Valley Regional Commission, they'll be there. And what this does, I think the upside is, having had this done by Virginia Biological Systems Engineering, as I understand it, and Darlene, you may have some more detail, it opens up opportunities for federal funding, federal monies, and so it's just one step in many to make improvements to the.
And the town did fund that study.
Yeah. So, so January 6th at 7 p.m. at the train station. I think there's gonna be a meet and greet, and then about 7:30, the actual presentation from Virginia Tech will take place. Did I cover all the
I
highlights.
think it would be a good idea if we can arrange for somebody to video that presentation so that we could then make it available to people who don't necessarily, make an evening meeting in the middle of winter,
That's a
because
good
we don't know
thought.
what the
Is
weather
that
will be like.
something you want?
Yeah, I'll be happy to say something to someone about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's it, Mr. Smith. That's all.
Mr. Ratcliffe?
Might be short, what we're gonna, I just wanna, real quick, the town manager, Mr. Mayor, I think it's, very well deserved for you tonight. People just don't understand where you have guided the ship through some very rough waters. It's, I can start seeing light, and it's because of what you brought and the council's doing. Second thing is, I'm very excited about this. People do not mind paying taxes if I think Mike said something about Splash City, and they got things for the kids to do, and you and Brady, I'm very excited about it. The only other thing I have is the staff. I want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas, and thank every one of them for the hard work in 21. 21 was a difficult year. The regular citizen doesn't know how difficult it was, but it was a very difficult year in trying to operate the town and everything we had to go through. So thank y'all so very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Cox?
Nothing this evening.
Mr. Reese?
Just again, to reiterate, Mr. Radcliffe, thanks to everybody at the town for their hard work, and also very excited about the recreational opportunities we're doing. It's really nice to have a plethora of options, as I think Mr. Reese said, that we're choosing between many good options, is a really nice thing to be able to do. The only thing I might say is that, we talked about replacing playground equipment and, starting the skate park and removing that stuff from, McGill Park. It does make me think there's not really a whole lot up in that whole quadrant of the town, and it might be worth us considering some, locations that we could, just, maybe we need this is again, would be great if we had a staff person. What are our recreational opportunities in that section of town? And are we making sure we're spreading that out through all sections of town in a fair and equitable way? Because, there's, it's all nice to put new playground equipment, but it'd be nice that it could be used by all of our citizens without having to travel the whole other side of town, so. But thank you.
I have just a couple things. I had a citizen ask me about putting the tables back in the primitive sites of Gatewood. They had removed them, and I know that we talked about it, but he said he will put them back, just benches and stuff like that, just for people when they're walking to have somewhere to sit. If you can check on that. And I want to thank Brooks for starting the meeting today. I had to meet with WSLS. They'll be on the news tonight at 11 o'clock for HCA. Lewis Gale is doing a campaign, and it's called Keep Your Lights Up for the healthcare heroes. So what they're wanting is to recognize the healthcare professionals, and they want us to keep our Christmas lights up through the end of January. So they have picked our house to put on the news tonight because we have a few decorations and a few lights.
Really?
A few. So 59 trees. But anyway, so it will be on the news tonight. So, and we will be keeping our lights on, just to honor and thank all of the the healthcare professionals, because we need to treat them well because they treat us well. And we're lucky to have Lewis Gale in our town, and it's a very good hospital, and I think we should blast it out there that they're that they're doing a good job. And so I would like for anyone else that has Christmas lights, leave them up through the end of January. That's my PSA. Now we'll move on to the manager's report. Ms. Bertram.
A couple of things. I've talked to, I think, several of you, and given that the Legislative Appreciation Dinner that is sponsored by the Chamber will occur on February the 1st this year, and that's your first meeting of February, I am suggesting that we that meeting to the Thursday of that week, which would be February the 3rd, and we'll go ahead and, I need to know that in advance because of our scheduling of rezonings and stuff. Would just remind, the public as well as the council that we had previously canceled the January 4th meeting. So I hope that, you all use that time to continue to, rest and relax, because I expect, the year 2022 to be a very active and, busy year. It's been kind of my tradition over the years to take the last meeting of a council meeting to reflect upon what we have accomplished in the year. Oftentimes we think too much about what we haven't done and don't think about what we have done, and we build upon those successes for even greater successes. So I did ask each of my departments early this morning to provide for me their 3 proudest moments of 2021. And I want to share those with you all briefly because I hope that you will take pride as well in these accomplishments of your staff. And as Mr. Radcliffe said, we have an outstanding staff and they have done tremendous work in a very challenging year, and I think are ready to do the same regardless of what gets thrown our way in 2022. But Bill Pettigos, and he couldn't stand being only 3, he gave me 4, that the Brookmont issue is resolved and very close to final design. In fact, we hope to bid that in early February. The Hardy Direct Injection project is finalizing its design and should also be bid in about February of next year. We are in the process of replacing the 4th and last filter at the filter plant, with including new drains and an air scour. So that's something that has been a long time in coming. And Bill said he had never seen this in his many years with the organization, but we are now having all of our existing water storage tanks painted inside and out. That's about a $1.1 million project that we are able to do with the ARPA funding. I think you all know, we talked a lot today about recreation, but we are investing a significant amount of the ARPA money in our infrastructure. Kim Caldwell, who is over much of Public Works, mentioned that we hired a very able water and sewer superintendent. The skate park, they ended up doing the finishing touches so we could meet the guidelines for that. Our annual paving and striping program was a real full-scale effort, and I think you see the results in many of our streets, and we are committed to doing something similar in 2022. And they are very proud, as I think the public is, of the light display that's in Jackson Park. And I hope you all had the opportunity to see that when you came tonight. It is beautiful. And we have gotten so many comments from folks. The fire chief mentioned that they got through another year without any serious or major injuries to personnel or extensive damage to their apparatus. And actually, they ran 700 calls with 31 structure fires and had very little loss. And I understand today they rescued Wendy's early this morning by putting out a fire there so that I was able to go through the drive-thru and get my baked potato at lunchtime. I didn't even know they had the fire. So he also mentioned that they have ordered, again with the ARPA money, an all-terrain vehicle that will help us to respond to emergencies in remote areas. And we had a great fire prevention week, as I think many of you know. I have a whole nother list here. Jill Neese, of course, mentioned the transition that she's undergone, and the fact that we have recruited and filled positions and have some very good hires that will be entering the academy come January. In the case of the human resources, and you all have seen much of that as legislative items, we have revised the personnel manual with Jackie's leadership. We are now really advantage of the various additional retirement options they have, participation in the ICMA deferred comp and other things that will help them when they approach retirement. And we will be moving as of January the 1st to totally direct deposit, which is something that has been in the works for some months, and we're offering not only direct deposit but pay cards for those people who don't want to necessarily have a bank account. I'm finding lots of reasons why people don't want to have bank accounts. I think it's because they don't want somebody to know how much they take home. But in the case of the finance department, Jackie Moore said, and she's very accurate, that we survived a very crazy and eventful year. I would tell you that my decision to promote Jackie, I think, was a very good one. I think it's proven itself. She mentioned the fund balance. If I were to tell you one of my significant proud moments, it was being able to have you all reported that in addition to the UDAG arrangement, we added $549,000 to your fund balance, when you have for the last several years been
That
on
was
a
huge.
very rapid decline.
Yeah, that was huge. It was a little sketchy, was it last year, I guess?
And that was with the effort of all of your staff, really, because and even in this year, we are tightening our belt, constantly looking at figures to make sure that we stay not only in the black, but that we continue to contribute to that fund balance. We have also made some significant improvements in our HR payroll system so that we are freeing people up to do other work, which is very important to all of us. Jill mentioned her K-9 program. That is off to a resounding success. And the new position of community resource specialist, that civilian position, is going gangbusters. She's really out in the community, meeting people, getting people engaged and involved, and I'm very pleased that that has happened. Carla Hodge, as our code enforcement person, mentioned that we are finally getting the demo of the old store building on Randolph and cleanup of a dilapidated building on South Washington. And those have been projects that have been going on for months, if not years. And we have successfully implemented, still are working on the rental inspection program, as well as the vacant building registration. And so far that is, seems to be paying off very well. It's been well received. We had some initial pushback by some landlords, but they seem to understand our purpose and are doing the kind of necessary improvements that are needed. So I think all in all, and this is not everything that everybody put forward, just a smattering of them, you'll see that you really have had a great year in the town. And I do think that next year will be even better because we have new people moving into the town and developers coming and talking to us about possibilities. And we seem to have a very interested financial community in assisting us in that endeavor. So I thank you for the opportunity to work with your staff this past year. And we have a lot to do over 2022, but we'll hit the ground running as soon as everybody enjoys the holiday. So thank you.
Okay, I gave you a chance, but you didn't say anything, but the new benches downtown look great. I saw them and they look amazing. You did good at ordering those. or should I say, you done good.
And we're still with quite a few vacancies, so.
Yeah. It's looking really good. All right, with that, we'll just do a reminder of our next council meeting, which is council work session January 18th, 2022. Closed session 5 p.m. Public session will start at 6:30. And with that, we have
Hold on. Do we need to do anything about moving that date in February?
You can go ahead and do it. I needed it for advertising purposes, but if you want to officially take the action tonight, that's fine.
I think we should just might as well if we're going to. So it's a motion to move the date from, what are the two dates? From February?
From February the 1st to February the 3rd.
From February 1st to February 3rd, 2022 for our February legislative session.
Second.
Can I do a, all, for that one? And all in favor for that, say aye.
Aye.
And same for opposed? Okay. Well, with that, then there's nothing else that's on our agenda. I call this meeting adjourned.
I didn't-